Morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Joe Scarice, your host and founder of the Creative Birth Strategies House, here to provide hopefully some great education, networking, and strategies. So we'll get started here in just the next few minutes. I'm going to add some people here, of course, and get rolling. We're also live on Apple and Spotify, live on the Creative Birth Strategies podcast. We have some guests on our podcast as well as Clubhouse as well. So it's kind of pretty cool. Tim, please silence your mic. Got a hot mic. Great. So I'm gonna invite some people in. We're gonna get started here. This morning, we're gonna be discussing out-of-state landlording strategies. I think we always talk about all these great markets throughout the country, right? But we
Recording
don't
in
really talk about
progress.
how do you really kind of handle being out of state, right? How do you be that out of state landlord and be successful? There's so many great barrier of entry markets right now, which we'll cover some of the top 10 that I've identified for us to discuss. And I think it'll be a good discussion really to get people comfortable considering the pros and cons of out of state landlord, because it's not for everybody. A lot of people want to, per se, stay within an hour where they live, and that's fine. But I know a lot of people that own properties completely across the country or in the Midwest, and they're on the East Coast or West Coast. When I was on the LA RE Expo, people were really pushing hard the Midwest markets, a lot of the smaller markets, great cash flow. Biggest concern I have when you're going to be an out-of-state landlord, it's three things: property management, and more property management. That's going to be your key to success in identifying, obviously, the right market to jump into. So let's get started here. Again, we're live at the Creative Birth Strategies podcast on Spotify and Apple. Please download us and follow us. We're going to be providing insight every weekend on the podcast along with the Clubhouse. So we're going to simultaneously podcast the podcast. And then we'll have some guests in between where we'll do some interviews as well. But I think it's going to be a really great combination, really leveraging the power of Clubhouse, the power of podcasting, and the power of what we're bringing into the new year in 2024. And we'll get into those items as well, events and activities and collaborations with so many people that I've met throughout the country. So some tips on managing your rental property out of state. When you're investing in real estate, you can always find the perfect property that's located in a home state, but that's okay. Successfully managing a rental property out of state isn't nearly as complicated as it may seem. With the right property management strategy, your property's performance and earning potential won't be compromised at all. How hard is it to manage a rental property? Managing a rental property can be challenging. The bigger the property, the more challenging it can be to manage. Managing a rental property can be easier if you effectively market your property, hire an experienced property manager or property management team in that market, creating a property maintenance plan. That's key. Create a property maintenance plan together with the management company. Upgrade your property's amenities, prioritize resident satisfaction and retention, stay up to date with property management trends, network with other property managers, embrace modern technology for all aspects of the property management process, Buildium, Appfolio, whatever software that complements the property management company. I would highly suggest bringing that on. What is the best state to be a landlord in? When it comes to the best state to be legally in a landlord right now, Texas is one of the most friendliest. This is because of the strict laws regarding lease violations, with courts often siding in favor of the owners. However, this doesn't mean Texas is the best state to own a rental property. Favorable rental laws also are a very important factor when it comes to successfully managing a rental property out of state. Now, how do I manage a property? Again, let's go back. What is the best way to managing a rental property out of state? Hiring a trustworthy property manager, familiarizing yourself with local laws, getting organized, embracing technology, automating rental payments, being available to your property management company, and visiting the property. You can't be completely hands off, especially in the single family through four family space. You're going to need that presence, month to month or quarterly to quarterly, having meetings with your property management company if you're going to be really out of state. A lot of my clients that have 10, 15, 20 properties, they have a team there. They have a power team. It's very critical about putting a power team together. So you need to keep a lot of this in consideration. We don't have any ladies yet. We have all gentlemen this morning, but we'll start off with Mr. Joseph Martella, Mr. Cookie Monster next to him, and he's also live on the podcast, on the Creative Bird Strategies podcast. Good morning, Joseph, and welcome. A brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, out-of-state landlording.
Good morning, Joe. As always, this is a really good topic, right? We talk about out of state. As you know, I purchased my first out of state property 2 years ago, which is professionally managed. It took a lot of, I wouldn't say courage, right? Because that's not really the word that I'm looking for right now. It just took a lot of out of the norm, right? We always joke about me talking about the buy box. And I would tell you my buy box initially was inside my where I live, right? My area of operation would be about an hour from, radius, if you will, from where I live. And then out of the state was a little convincing for my brother, so we wound up purchasing the out of state area as a JV. It's more landlord friendly. The barrier of entry was much lower. The cash flow was decent. And again, the property manager that we went with has had a very good reputation through the research that I've done on Bigger Pockets, other references, social media support, and other investors that I've talked to. So that's you hit it on the head, right? You hit the nail on the head, right? Property management is you're going to live and die by your property manager on properties that are nowhere near you. You're not there, right? So the property manager is going to select your tenants. The property manager is going to make sure that they're getting paid. The property manager eyes and ears for everything that goes on with that property. So if your property manager isn't as good as they should be, then that's absolute problem. You need to keep on top of it. You have a responsibility to manage your property manager. But I'm complete, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate that. Get myself back on here. Hold on one second. All right.
Joe?
Yeah, hold on. I'm back. Sorry about that. We're trying to multitask here. I'm figuring out all the little bells and whistles of simultaneously podcasting the podcast with a group on the podcast as well. This is what I think from what Joe's saying. What I think you need to do is get comfortable with a local RIA as close to where that market is. And I'm sure in any given market that you're going to look at right now, there's absolutely a strong investors group or some type of real estate investors association presence there. That's where you're going to mine your team, the realtors, the appraisers, the accountants, the attorneys. For now, there's different various attorneys. You're going to need real estate attorneys for leasing, litigation, structuring of the LLC, maybe in that market, and also general contractors or maintenance groups outside the property management company. You want to have your own go-to people, a good title company in that market or escrow officers, a good lender that understands that market or understands that region. Thankfully, I'm a nationwide direct private lender. I have the privilege to go and visit a lot of these markets. So it's when I'm seeing a lot of these people, it's funny. I go to a lot of these real estate investor group meetings. I just went to a couple out in Tennessee, and there's 100 people in each room, and I'm the only lender there. I don't understand what the miss I'm seeing. I'm seeing 100 real estate investors in all various stages of experience, and I'm the only game in town providing money. Kind of an interesting circumstance. A good insurance agent. I think people underestimate how important it is to have a good insurance agent in your power team as an out-of-state investor, as an out-of-state landlord. Managing a mortgage broker, a good mortgage broker as well. You need some clutch people. I like to go, if it's something I can't do, I always say, listen, something I can do. Maybe go to a local bank or local credit union or a mortgage broker that understands that market very directly. Maybe they have a private money lender. I have a circumstance right now where I have a client, very well-to-do client, 300 properties, and I needed some private money, not private lending, but true private money to get things done in days, not weeks. And I called a couple of my colleagues, and I was able to provide money and leverage against free and clear properties and give a couple of my colleagues, really good money return, about 15%. That would have took 3 to 4 weeks where I needed like 3 to 4 or 5 days. So in some of those circumstances, having some of that local talent is extremely important. Oh, we have a young lady that just showed up. Good morning, Shani. How are you? Welcome.
Good morning.
A little background on yourself, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, out-of-state landlording strategies. And I'm sure you deal with a lot of people that come from out of state that want to buy properties in your market.
Good morning. Absolutely. So I'm Shawnee. I'm based in Eastern Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. I'm a licensed realtor investor. I work a lot with buy and hold clients that have rental properties. I help them.
You're breaking up, Shawnee.
Rentals, and I do have a lot of out-of-state people or people that are, far away within the state. So,
Shawnee, you're coming in and out. I just want to let you know. We couldn't hear you. I guess you're traveling through a rough spot. Yeah, you're better now.
so definitely, I don't know what the discussion was, what you talked about before, but you definitely have to have clear set. If you're a property manager, a clear set of policies and procedures. You need to have funds set aside in that account for emergencies. I mean, just had landlord where sewer backed up, and the person's in the West Coast. So definitely, if you're going to self-manage your property, you definitely need to have a team. But I really advise people to have a property manager to take care of emergencies, because this is winter, and Joe, you can attest, temperatures are very, very low right now. So you just really have to always have a backup plan, your list of vendors, and a trusted property manager if you're going to have properties where you can't tend to the situation when there's an emergency.
Well, it was a crisp 18 degrees when I went out to the gym this morning. So yes, I felt the cold, and I thought about how many pipes were having issues right now in certain markets. It gave me chills just thinking about it. So again, having a good maintenance group, a group along with the property management company and your own team in that market is going to be very, very important. And sometimes, the real estate agent identified the property for you, as well as maybe handling the rental for you outside the property management company, they might be a go-to person. They're always talking with service providers, right? But I'm a big fan. You got to go to the real estate investor events. You got to go to the zoning meetings in that market, see who's doing what, what's going on in your market, really understanding, is there growth? Is it stagnant? Is there other opportunities for you to grow your market there? I mean, when I was at the LA RIA Expo this fall, people are looking in Oklahoma, they're looking in Alabama, they're looking in Mississippi, they're looking in Indiana. They're not looking in California. I mean, California is one of the most inflated, overpriced places to live. They can't afford to buy anything that makes money. So again, I'm in the southern part of New Jersey. It's still a very good rental market, but there could be better barriers of entry, say in Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, for that matter. And I'm going to, real quick, I just want to announce that we have another great event coming up in March in Denver, Colorado, collaborating with Great Mile High Real Estate Investors Summit. Tim and Jim, who are on here this morning, they'll do their intros to that event. But log in and get your early bird pricing special to be one of the attendees and registrants. It's going to be a full 3 days of education, networking, and strategy building for your real estate business. So I'm going to post something else that really caught my eye this morning. And we're going to go to this right now. All right, give me 1 second.
I just wanted to mention, we talked about this before in your rooms, but the trend is, if you're going to be out of state or even in state, there are so many, especially New Jersey, there's so many. You're going to go to an association, which a lot of investors where I am, they want to go to an association for easy management. I mean, because they're not responsible for the outside. Most of these associations, I would say a lot more in the last year, have passed resolutions where you cannot, they have restrictions. I mean, I just read into one that, they just passed it in June, and here are the property's got like 15 offers on it. It's not listing, but I don't know that the agent even knows that. So that, you really have to check that, because more and more that's happening with bylaws. If you're going to buy a property in an association, whether it's a condo or HOA, you better be aware of that, and it can change at any time. You could buy today, and then next week they can have a meeting and decide that they don't want investors, that many investors. And yeah, this place that I'm talking about, Joe, there's 11 people on the waiting list that have rental properties.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, condos and townhouses are a tricky spot, especially if you have a poor HOA presence there, or the committee is just not, they're not business-like. HOAs, you're supposed to treat the HOA like a business because it's managing a portfolio of units. And I think there's a misnomer. There's very uneducated sometimes people that are involved with the HOAs, and they really don't know how to budget. They don't know how to collect money. Like I was talking to a client of mine, they haven't collected his HOA in like 6 months, and now everybody needs to get money to take care of the roof. Like I'm like, what? It's crazy. So there's a great market in the condo townhouse space for investors. It's a little more controlled, less external maintenance. But if your HOA is shitty, excuse my French, you could run into a whole load of problems, and you could end up not cash flowing whatsoever with the HOA being like kind of pricing it out for somebody to rent it out. So with rising interest rates and competitive housing market made renting all the more popular last year, right? So here's some interesting markets that I identified through a web when I did some research. Top 10 cities for renters in 2024, which I like a lot of these markets. Okay. Top 10 cities to watch for rental activities to watch based on increased rental activity in the past 12 months. Number one is Atlanta, Georgia. Now, again, it doesn't have to be the city itself, but the surrounding area. Kansas City, Missouri, Cincinnati, Ohio, Arlington, Virginia, Orlando, Florida, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Denver, Colorado, Portland, Oregon, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Overland Park, Kansas. These are, again, very interesting locations to identify. I think some of them make a lot of sense. Some of them, it all depends where you're buying. I think some of like Denver, I think is a little inflated. I think Minneapolis is just badass cold. I don't know, I'm more of a fan of Wisconsin than Minneapolis. I think New Mexico, Albuquerque is a sleeper, which I like. I like Overland Park, Kansas. I like the Atlanta market. I was in Kansas City, Missouri this past year, in Cincinnati. Very strong markets, great strong on the single family through four family as well as the multifamily space. Orlando, Florida. I mean, they can't make enough of it. It's like just a very tranquil market. Yeah, you have Disney World and a lot of the other, childlike environments to go to. But wow, what a great place to live! A lot of activities, a lot of things going on. Portland, I don't know if I'm a fan of that. I think that's a little skewed. It might be the surrounding areas of Portland, not in inner city. So that is from NASDAQ for their thoughts on the top 24, the top for 2024. Good morning, Jim. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to discussion this morning, out-of-state landlording strategies. Jim?
I had to unmute both apps there. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, guys on the stage. Good morning, Clubhouse. It's hope you're having a super Sunday wherever you are. Hey, I'm out in Denver area. I'm a partner with Tim with a matching green shirt here. I own Invest Success with him. We're a 12-month coaching program, and we're one of the main sponsors for the Great Mile Real Estate Investor Summit. We are going to have a fun time out here. So we invite you to come out and be a part of it. We would say go ahead and get your reservation at the hotel now because we're cutting back on our room block. So that $179 is going to go up to about $200 to $300. So register now, like a few of the guys on here already have. As far as the topic today, investing out of state, it all depends on where you're sitting. The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Denver's a great place to invest in. Tim and I, our students, have been going rock solid for over a year. Finding deals. They're gems. You have to dig for them, but they're finding deals, and they're putting a lot of hard work in on their projects, and they're making good returns. But while our students are here, and we made your list, Denver's a good area. There are deals here, but there's a lot of Denver people that are going out of state. They're going to Kansas, Texas, Georgia, Alabama. They can take that same bag of money and buy a whole lot more real estate, a whole lot more house. The rehab costs, I don't know what the rehab costs, but the rents, even though they get a house for a lot less money, the rents are still solid. And the funny thing too is while a lot of people in Denver are going to other states, guess what? There's people like California that are flooding or leaving California and coming running to Colorado to invest. So it all depends on where you sit, what your interest is. I got a good friend of mine. He travels all over the country. He invests all over the country. And one thing he says is never invest in your home neighborhood. Because if you're investing, especially if you get buy and holds, whether it be apartments or houses, and you've got a management company, let them do the work. Still got to build all the team wherever you go, but let them go. He says, pick an area where you want to travel once or twice a year. If you have family down in sunny Orlando, you'd love to go visit them at least once a year when it's cold and your business is paying all your expenses. If you got family, say, in the Carolinas, you want to go over there once a year. Look at getting properties there. But it's do your research, look at all the areas, see what's growing, see what industries are there, and look at the costs are there. I mean, a loaf of bread costs different in different places. Taxes is a big thing. Some places everything's cheap, and it's cheap for a reason because you pay through the nose for taxes. So if you pick an area that interests you, do your research and don't do it all virtual. Get on a plane, get in a car, drive over there, put feet on the ground, and talk to these local people. And because you got to build a network, you got to be able to trust them that they're going to take care of you. And a joke Tim and I have: service people, they have a shelf life. They may start out really good during the dating phase, then you get married, and sometimes things go sour, and of course there has to be a divorce. So you've got to manage your managers, but doing business outside your state is good. I would say find something locally, do a couple of projects local, get your groove down, and then go apply that elsewhere. Just be careful of the numbers. I always say it 100 times a week. Know your numbers. Back to you, Joe. And guys, we'll see you in Denver in March.
Thank you, Jim. I'm going to post on the next run, I'll post the top 60 markets referenced by building for the individual that requested that in the chat. I'll have that out in just a few minutes, I promise. I'll post that for you guys. Just want to do another announcement for another great follow-up event following the great Denver event. And I wanted to stop real quick on the Denver. I think Denver's on that top 10 list because I think it's a little skewed with all the building between the airport and Denver proper. And they're taking that into account as a good rental market because of that. Because I think in the city, I think there's still some issues in how they're going to restructure some of these buildings. Are they going to reform them from office retail to residential? And they're having the same struggle in every urban city throughout the country. I mean, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Boston hasn't been impacted that bad, but certain other markets in the Midwest, what are they going to do with all these office buildings that are at 30% or occupancy or better? So it's yet to see how the institutional investor, meaning the BlackRocks, the Blackstones, State Street, Vanguard, how they impact the true rental market for the smaller mom and pop, mid-sized landlord, whether out of state or in state, how that's going to impact the rental market overall and the values of these properties. Because you got to remember, since asset-based lending has been such a forefront in lending, it's all about the income and expense and the debt service coverage ratio of the property to get leverage and get out of the deal and go on to the next. So if you can't leverage to get all your money out because rents are coming down or leveling for that matter, for the short term, say the next couple of years at least, what happens when you have this influx of rentals coming in through the office building reset and conversions into rental markets where it's more of an eat, work, and live? That Gen Z, that millennial, they want all the amenities. They want to be spoiled. They don't want to have to do gardening themselves. They don't have to do anything to do. They want to walk in, rent, and go to work from home, work virtually, work from their workspace, whatever that's going to. They don't want to do much. So where's that population of people that are going to want to be in the single family row home? And that's a concern I have, whether you're out of state or in state, But what I'm seeing for myself, if you're on the East Coast and the West Coast, number one thing as an investor looking at out of state is the affordability. Finding an investment property that actually it provides a profitable return is becoming increasingly difficult for people who live in large urban cities with rapidly rising housing prices. Smaller secondary to tertiary cities often have more affordable home prices with a larger percentage of renters. I like Oklahoma City. I like Tulsa. I like Indianapolis. I like all the Wisconsin markets. I like Milwaukee. I like Madison. I like Eau Claire, Appleton, Sheboygan, and Green Bay. Diversification. Investing in the out-of-state rental property also helps investors avoid putting all their eggs in one basket, so to speak. Building a portfolio of rental properties in different states may smooth all their eggs in one basket, so to speak. Building a portfolio of rental properties in different states may smooth out cash flows and increase overall potential returns. I like Ohio. I like Akron. I like Dayton. I like Youngstown. I think Cincinnati and Columbus are cresting. I think everybody's there. I think all your out-of-state buyers are flocking to those markets because they're big. The market itself, individual real estate markets historically shift from buyers markets to balanced markets to sellers markets over the period of time. Rather than hoping and waiting for the dynamics of the home market to change, an investor can go online and search for rental properties in markets that favor buyers. I feel we're walking into a true buyer's market in the spring. I don't think rates are going to come back down to some that makes an owner-occupied home buyer come off the bench probably till after Labor Day. I think we're going to have a strong fourth quarter for home buyers, but I think our spring market and summer market is going to be all for the investor. A strategy to think about. All investors have favorite strategies, but such as buying and holding single-family rental properties or single-family to four-family, but owning some small multi-family properties or investing in short-term vacation rentals. I like the short points. You don't see a heavy rental availability. Okay, while most places have these types of properties, not all offer the same potential returns. I'm looking at some short points and some townhomes down in Brigantine, neighboring Atlantic City. There's not a lot of year-round market rents because the minute one goes up, it's gone. Because the thought is, we'll just short-term rental everything. But there might be opportunities in some of these shore points where the market rate might make just as much sense based on short-term rental and all the deferred maintenance issues that come with it. So you got to think about the cost-benefit relationship. Another quick announcement, Realty 411 Investor Summit in Philadelphia. Join us to network, strategize, and be educated. We'll be there April 13th and 14th of this year. We're going to be at the legendary Mummer Museum for the Saturday event. Friday lunch, Friday happy hour, and the Saturday evening event will be held at Moonshine Philly, which is right down the block in the heart of South Philadelphia. We'll also be providing hotel discount at the Marriott at Navy Yard, where we had the original event last year. We have all new speakers and presenters. It's going to be very educationally sounded. Really nothing being sold, just how we're doing this on here and providing insight and education for everybody. Good morning, Dave. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to discussion, out-of-state landlording strategies.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dave DeVito. I'm a licensed real estate solution specialist here in Fairfield County, Connecticut, just outside of New York City. I'm a licensed realtor with Real Broker. I'm a longtime wholesaler and private money affiliate with Joe, as well as an investor. This is a really interesting topic. I'm very interested in it because, for me, while I've invested in multifamilies in my area in Connecticut, one of my goals later this year, early next year, is to start exploring out of state. For me, it's the friendlier landlord laws. Connecticut has a lot of upside for real estate investment, but landlord friendliness, as Joe, we heard at the event the other night, is not one of them. So I'm looking to diversify. A lot of great points that were made already. It goes without saying that getting a quality property manager who you trust and has got a good relationship and a good knowledge of that market that you're choosing to is a key one. But as Jim just mentioned, I echo 100%. You got to manage your property manager. You got to manage everything. You can't just kind of think it's on autopilot and sit back and let them do their thing in that regard. But then also build out, as it's also been said already, your power team. Really diversify your power team. Really build relationships down there. Just about kind of like finding a property, doing the underwriting to see if the cash flows buying it and then sitting back and hoping that the rest of your team is just going to take over 100% from there. It's my opinion that you've got to take a responsibility to get down to that market, relatively often, whether it be quarterly minimum, eye it for yourself. Have a presence with yourself. Have a relationship with other investors that can be good sounding boards and collaborators with you in that regard is key. Really asking yourself, what about that market appeals to you? You might invest in a market for one reason and invest in a market for another, whether it be landlord friendliness, whether it be for better cash flow or lower purchase prices for more affordability for entry point. But when you map out, your why, statement specifically for that market that you're choosing, really have that plan and take that going, because that's going to be really, really important. Knowing the marketplace policies in general, and really keeping an eye on the macro. Don't just keep that really that microscope on your specific property that you might own, but you really have to have a good plan of good news and media intake to really keep on top of all the changing politics, market trends on the macro level 100%, and adjust accordingly, because that's really, really important. So those are just a couple of thoughts on me, but I'm listening in because, again, I've never been an out-of-state landlord, but I definitely aspire to be in the near future. Back to you, Joe.
Thank you, Dave. And quick question: what's your thoughts on migration reports that I'm seeing? I would like to get your thoughts on migration reports, Dave. Your thoughts on New Hampshire and Maine, where Boston's kind of pricing out and cresting. What's your thoughts on that whole movement up there? I mean, is it real? Are the landlord laws a little better? Is the rental market doing well up there? I know you have colleagues that are up in both those markets. What's your thoughts on that movement?
It's a good question, Joe. I mean, obviously, whenever you're on the outliers of a major city like Boston, obviously I experienced it being rented out in New York. It's part of it, so it's definitely interesting. In full transparency, I have not really kept a really close eye on those markets. I don't think that a lot of people have, and so that could be a good thing. You can kind of I know you're a big fan of trying to learn about those markets for that reason. That there are some RIAs up there, from what I've heard, that are decent but not big. So it could be a place you can go up there and just not have to deal with as much competition. Obviously, there's some great tourist reasons to get up there. New Hampshire and Maine are beautiful tourist destinations, so short-term rental people up there really appreciate that in that regard. On the commuter aspect of it, one of the things about Boston, unlike New York, you could definitely get that more of like the renter that's going to be maybe working in Boston but might want to live in a more affordable, less metro part of the area and commute into Boston, because that is definitely something, as a former long-time commuter, I can relate to those commuter buyers in that regard. So, but again, Joe, I don't have in full transparency a deep knowledge, but I'm starting to inch into it as you and I try to explore that marketplace up there.
Yeah, I'm going to be in New Hampshire and both Maine, and I really like some markets in New York State. I'm really high on Rochester right now, and Syracuse and Buffalo. I think Binghamton is kind of 50-50 on my radar. I'll be visiting Syracuse in the spring. I'll be visiting New Hampshire and Maine in the spring. There's some smaller groups there, but Dave, as you and I both agree, 25 strong people in a room is way better than 100 people in a room when trying to identify people to collaborate with or investors to kind of network with. Like that event we went to this past week in Bridgeport, there was about 20, 25 people in the room, but everybody was highly focused in what they were trying to accomplish there that night.
I agree 100%. As a longtime host, as you know, of the RIA here, which is, again, it's a great RIA, it's a large RIA, but it's really tough to stay focused and have a true, legitimate, collaborative conversation. So I agree with you. That's going to be my goal as I try to craft my own personal event strategy. Is more, as I call it, micro events, where you can really sit down and network as a group and have group discussions. Instead of, Joe, you're the master of this. I really respect your talents in working a room of 50 plus people and hitting literally everyone in a couple of hours. I can't do it. I think I'm a pretty decent networker. I do working the room, but having an opportunity like we saw the other night to have 10 to 20 people around a table and have a round table type discussion, that I agree 100% is more valuable in my opinion than just having these large, just massive events where you're just walking around and trying to just connect with people.
Thank you, Dave, for the kind words. Listen, I really feel the art of networking is an art form. You really need to be confident when you go up to introduce yourself cold and warm that conversation up. I was mentored and coached by several people on how to conduct myself in those type of environments. But I would agree with you, these bigger events that I've attended this past year, I've had a poorer result than the smaller events. Like I feel like I got very personable with several people in that room with 25 in Bridgeport, where in bigger pockets you had 3,000 people. You couldn't get that personal. You couldn't take that time to really understand what was ticking in their brain, what they were trying to accomplish as an investor, what they were trying to accomplish as a landlord. Was it growth mode? Was it sell-off mode? Was it private money lending? Was it, do I need a good insurance agent? Do I need a good property manager? Like, it's more defined, the discussions in these smaller events. That's why I'm going to a lot of these smaller markets, because I want to meet the 25 people that take the time to show up at one of those events. They're engaged. They're not there just for the dinner. They're there to learn something, walk away with a nugget, and hopefully apply it to what they're doing currently. And I think the landlord associations, even better than the real estate investor associations, are key. Identify landlord associations in markets, because that's where the landlords work, and that's where they're bringing people in. They're tied into the government. I noticed one thing about landlord associations compared to real estate investor associations. The real estate investor associations don't bring in government officials to understand the market. They bring in, I hate to say, sell-a-thons and kind of bullshit like rhetoric that kind of give you a little sliver, but it doesn't get right to the rabbit hole. What I like about the landlord associations, they get right to the point. They bring the mayor in, they bring a congressman in, they bring somebody in from the inspection department. They're bringing key officials that impact your bottom line, no matter where you own this property. Okay, so up and above going to a real estate investor association, I would identify either an apartment association or a landlord association in that market. Most have a landlord association. And guess what? They're not that big. There might be only 10, 15, 20 people in that room, but every one of those people are a landlord. They're active in that market. Joseph, I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Martella. Brief thoughts to what we were saying here, because I know you have this problem sometimes at South Jersey REIA where you want to bring in government officials. What's your thoughts on that, comparing apples to apples?
Yep, I'm getting there. I had to unmute everything. So, yeah, listen, sometimes it's a challenge, right? In my experience, it's not just SJ REIA, it's just the REIAs as a whole getting politically aligned, if you will, is a challenge, and you don't want to get that, right? The REIAs want to stay politically agnostic, especially these days where you're either on one side or the other. You're either a friendly or an enemy. It's been in a politically charged environment. You can see the leadership of the REIAs don't want to get involved in that arena. Generally, speaking from experience in trying to get politicians or candidates for office to speak, generally it's usually just one side that would entertain us, as opposed to the other side that is cancel rent protest and supportive of that. And as landlords and real estate investors, we don't have the upper hand. You want to really think about it. If you're one investor, you have one vote. You're renting to a family of people that have 3 or 4 18-year-olds or above. That's 3 or 4 votes multiplied by how many properties you have. So that's generally the experience that I've been having. But we've been somewhat successful in crossing that bridge and getting to where we need to be with getting the right representatives to come before. We were successful in getting some candidates into the room and still working on it moving forward.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. And I think a lot of people think the Real Estate Investor Association is the make all to break all. It's not. You got to look at landlord associations. You got to look at community events. If you're going to be a true investor, whether out of state or in state, you need to have the right professional business mindset. You know, Joe and I talked about you got to treat it like a true business. We talked about this just last night. We treat your business, your real estate business, like a business. So I posted the top 60 markets ranked by Buildium, which is one of the better softwares out there managing your properties, and a lot of property management companies. This is based on rent growth, population growth, you know, inventory, third-party property management, the competition amongst real estate agencies, companies that focus on improving efficiency and technology, renters and renter migration, renter financing and strain. So it's a good link to go to see where the top 60 are. It's a really good market, a really good link to go to. But I think you'd get a good flavor of what markets are best. So the individual that went in the chat, let me see where it is there. I think it was Kenyatta. So Kenyatta, we put that out there for the Buildium. It's probably the more precise numbers because they're tied into probably the top property management companies in every market throughout the country. So let's get back to out of state landlord. Some things that I want you to have some takeaways. Benefits of owning an out of state rental property may include finding better and more affordable deals and using less cash for a down payment in areas where home prices are lower. The challenges to having a rental out of state property includes understanding the local real estate market and managing the rental property with a property management company. Hiring the right local maintenance and property management company is going to be the most important part of identifying a market that you want to go to out of state. Obviously, the better barrier of entry, identifying, like I'll give you an example. I've been looking in Maine and looking in New Hampshire, a two-family in Maine, and the rent's debt service straight on with what properties on the market compared to Massachusetts and Connecticut, where if you don't find a value add in those states, you're not going to really debt service on the back end to refinance the property and hold it long term. So I can tell you right off the bat, there's sleeper markets like Manchester, New Hampshire area, and the Bangor and Portland, Maine area, but they're very strong markets because the rental occupancy is longer. I see a longer stay of tenants in those markets than comparatively to Boston, where prices are keep moving up in rents. And Connecticut's having its own set of problems with really very favorable tenant laws and really working against the landlord.
Um, my thoughts. Honestly, everyone's been kind of hitting it on, on the nail on the head. I'm Timothy Doyle. I'm up here in the Greater Lehigh Valley, where we were getting last week's Denver weather as well up here. My thoughts on out-of-state landlording. Honestly, if you've had no experience doing anything in-state or in your own backyard, out-of-state might be a little more foreign. So if you're a beginning investor, my thoughts and theories are get practice in your own backyard. Good points to Joseph about getting hooked in with, going to zoning meetings. Very good points. And even some of the points he's not made up, but some of the points that he has discussed earlier, rather as far as, again, one thing we always preach here is do your due diligence, do your numbers. Look at areas, network with people who are out in those areas, ask questions, ask good questions, and also understand, first and foremost, the why. Why are you doing this? What are you looking for? What is your overall goal and outcome? What are you looking to get? And have those goals that are measurable. Oftentimes I'll find that people just want to say, I'm going to go out of state because this link says, well, yeah, that link might be mostly right, but again, do your due diligence on those. For example, if I want to invest in Texas, a spot in Texas, great. I'm looking in the Houston market area. Okay, well, I'm not going to look for a place just outside of San Antonio because there's quite a bit of distance between San Antonio and Houston. Find a good, reputable property manager. I have had experience where I had a property manager who was marginally doing the job that they should have been doing, and unfortunately, it cost me dearly. Have also, when you're looking at like HOAs, when you're looking at property management, what kind of maintenance do they involve? Learn to read your contracts. Have an attorney review that contract so you understand the verbiage. If you don't, understand what is included, know the expectations, make sure they are all set. Set your expectations ahead. If they don't align with what your goals are, don't do it. If they do align and all your numbers match and everything looks good, fine. You have to also learn, and this is the most valuable piece of information I think I would ever give, learn to find the people you can trust, people within your network, people you have known. Make sure you also have everything in writing. Contracts are never written for things when things go right. And actually, I wanted to further discussion this evening. Tonight, Garrett Rhodes and I have a discussion tonight where some of these links that we actually, and some of the resources that Joseph has been using in some of his rooms, we will be reviewing and going over and discussing them and vetting them and seeing and showing you how they may work and how they might work to help leverage your business. Again, treat this as your business, as your baby. This is a make or break you. This is not a cheap industry to be in by a stretch of the imagination. Barriers of entry are all different. So I want to make sure, we're trying to make sure you get prepared for those barriers of entry. So again, this is Timothy Doyle up here in the Greater Lehigh Valley with Steel Hill Properties. Remember, you can't buy it, steal it, and look forward to seeing you all in Philadelphia soon. Thank you, Joseph.
Hey Tim, what do you think the Lehigh Valley market, since it's crested, Schuylkill County and Lackawanna County has become more of a hot market for landlords to buy, but they're not getting the same appreciation. Why is that? Because Lehigh Valley is really crested out in values. Why are they not getting the same appreciation when you do the value adds to the single family through four family up in the Schuylkill and Lackawanna County? Is just not the appreciation's just not there, or it's not an owner occupied market? What's the story there?
Well, the appreciation isn't there on two fronts. Right now, industry. As a matter of fact, my full-time position, and for any of you who haven't guessed, I'm an information systems project manager, now senior executive information systems project manager. What that means is I'm responsible for helping the hospital find out new locations to go. Not only that, but I'm also in charge of making sure all their information systems, including devices, like your monitoring devices, are all ordered, hooked up, whatever, logistics, you name it. So I think some of the reasons we're looking at that there's a gap between what industry is available when industry is out there and how far people are willing to drive. Now, with the cresting of Lehigh Valley has a very good solid industry basis. Like it's a populous region, not quite as heavily populated as like say a Philadelphia or a major city, but we're also, you've got to remember logistically, we're between about an hour and a half to 6 hours depending on traffic to New York City, where we also have a streamlined mode of transportation between the Lehigh Valley and New York City. And also Philadelphia in those markets. And we also have an abundance of industry. We have, our own airport, our own transportation hubs. So it is still actually getting there. It's closer to being full-fledged, at least infrastructure-wise. However, when you go out, what I consider the wild, wild west, your property values there are more favorable to barrier of entry. You have a lot of your properties out there are lower cost, a little more affordable for landlords to obtain, as well as people who are actually looking for permanent housing. They don't mind driving an hour and a half, 2 hours into the Lehigh Valley or into Philadelphia, depending where they're at. It's also not as gentrified as some of the other areas like Bethlehem, Allentown, Philadelphia. So that also might look attractive to someone who wants to live out in the woods a little more. So those are my thoughts, Joseph.
Thank you, Tim. Some drawbacks to out-of-state rental properties. One of the biggest challenges to buying rental property out of state is committing to taking the time and effort to understand the market. While potential profits may be greater, there is also a learning curve to investing outside of your home market. Some possible drawbacks to out-of-state rental properties and how to avoid making the big mistake. Skipping due diligence and buying properties sight unseen. I've seen that many a times, and it's just bad. Struggling to find quality tenants to rent your property. That's another market. You got to understand, what is your renter base there? What is your rental capabilities? What Section 8 look like compared to market rent? Unfamiliarity with the landlord tenant laws and local laws and customs. You really need to get yourself familiarized with the market. You can't be off site. You got to understand that market fully. So these are some things that you have to think about. So when you're thinking out of state, I don't want to paint it with like all rosy pictures. A lot of people don't think about that. A lot of real estate agents don't experience that exposure to property management. They're typically just dealing with buyers and sellers, and they kind of whatever the buyer and seller does with the property after the fact is not sometimes of their concern, and then they might make some introductions to some property management companies, but they stay pretty far away from it. So I think we have a new guest here on our podcast at the Creative Bird Strategies. We have our mascot, Boss, which is Mr. Joe Martella's favorite pet. What a cute little dog. Doesn't match up with the owner, but hey, I digress. But he's a cute little dog. He's a cute little dog. And if you tune into the Creative Bird Strategies podcast and download our podcast, you get to see Boss. You get to see Joe too, but I would much rather say, I want you to take a better look at Boss. He is such an adorable little dog. So keep him in mind as well. So, Jennifer, good morning and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to discussion this morning, out-of-state landlording strategies.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. Thanks for having me up. My name is Jennifer Goodman. I'm a realtor in Austin, Texas, which is a good few hours from Houston for the gentleman who was speaking there. And I actually recently bought an investment property for a client in San Antonio and definitely worked, to his point, with locals. At no point can be a professional and also think that you are queen of the universe in all these other markets. Texas is a big state, so I can't pretend to know the ins and outs of certain areas, but I definitely can create relationships. And so that was very much what I did when I went on this opportunity to really create wealth and abundance for a father and son team. So that was really cool. What I did was I personally asked a lot of questions on their behalf before I even took it to my investor clients. And I think as professionals, especially for realtors, then we owe it to know the most we can for our clients before coming to them. So for me, I was the heat-seeking missile, looking for the opportunities, ferreting things out, driving to town, and really getting my eyes and ears on the property and talking with the people that I needed to, because it's not reasonable for me to have that knowledge without going to the professionals. And so what it really did was open up potential for my clients in a rental market that is predicted and has consistently been doing really well outside of one of the bases there. So from a property management perspective, I checked out the reputation. I figured out what was included in their services of year one versus what will they do in the future, and will they guarantee things for my client. I really went in as if I was the client and then created a network of exceptional professionals within that city. So I made sure we got him a really great person to go in and do that third party inspection. And we could see other things that were being built in the area in different stages of what that particular builder was creating, because they're creating an entire subdivision that they will allow investors or first time owners to buy these fourplexes in. And so it just became my due diligence as a professional, because for me, it goes back again to what the gentleman was talking about. Why was I doing it? Because I was very specific on my outcome orientation. I needed to provide a service and an understanding in order to lead my clients and know if I really did have a solution to what it was they were looking for. And so consistently staying on that and moving other things out of the way allowed them to make a really solid investment that they're happy with. And I think that, again, that due diligence part is always going to be the most important part for all of us as we go forward. Part of adulting is taking full responsibilities for the questions we ask, as well as the questions we do not. So that is where I'm coming from here in Austin, which if you are an investor, then there's a lot of things going, working for an off-market opportunity versus on-market. Our taxes are super high in this area, in the immediate Austin area. So the investors I work with are either looking to put their money in to flip some things, or knock it down and build it up. But as a burst strategy right here in Austin today, it's next to impossible unless you are finding some type of really solid seller finance. So that's my ad from not so sunny and in the 30s today, Austin, Texas. Although, as we know, I'm originally from Philly, and sad about the birds last week, but it happens.
Well,
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Jennifer. I got a couple questions for you. One, I'm not a Philadelphia Eagle fan. I'm just here as a transplant because I fell in love with a beautiful woman from South Philadelphia. So I'm not really a general. I don't have a team. I'm teamless in that sense. I love the sport itself. Two, we're freezing here, about 18 degrees. And sometimes there's a strain on property management in a lot of these markets. They're taking on more than they can chew. Are you seeing that same strain of property management taking on out-of-state landlords and over-promising and under-delivering for their client base currently in Austin, since it's a hot market?
That is a great question. And what I would go back to, Joe, is that having a network of exceptional professionals, and the people that I know that I would lead my clients to are those that I do trust. I think it's like anything. You can find people who will overpromise and underdeliver, or you can really do your homework and get with the people that have been longstanding and promise and stay on their promise. So I can't want to paint with that wide of a brush. I just want to say that it would be my job to find the people that we really can trust and then do our due diligence to make sure that once that trigger is pulled, that we are with the right management company.
Yeah, because what I'm seeing here in Philadelphia, there's a really strong Facebook group that a landlord put together called the Philadelphia Landlord Connection. And man, oh man, you see some horror stories of some of these top management companies that just don't stay focused with their clients at all. They're just a number, how Tim said it. And I think to identify that more personable mid-sized management company before they get too big is a concern. I know a lot of management companies, they don't want to get to it. They don't want to go past a certain number. They don't want to be more than X amount of units managing. They're profitable at a certain number. They want to be careful in how they grow and build out their team and maintenance group because they want to be able to facilitate the needs of their clients. I see one company, I'm not going to name them. They're trying to go national, and I think they're going to burn in flames because I think they're doing is destroying a lot of money because they have a lot of money behind them. But that doesn't always save the case. And I'm seeing a lot of complaints of their services here in Philadelphia. They're trying to grow into other markets. I think they're going to burn a lot of relationships, and it's going to build a bad rep. I fully agree with you, Jennifer and Tim, You got to find that middle of the road, somebody that's responsive, good communication skills, people that are assigned to your needs. When I'm in the greater Philadelphia market for a referral from my client, I have a very strong management company that I go to because they're not too big, they're not too small. They have the group, they have a team, they have a team mindset. I'm part of a lot of their calls. Sometimes they bring me in to talk about asset-based lending. And I think that's where the miss is with these out-of-state landlords. They come in and they're told a great, hey, we're going to take care of everything. You don't have to be, you're going to be hands off. I've never experienced a hands-off environment as an investor owner in my career. 20, 30 years as an investor owner, I've never been hands-off. I'm always addressing calls and emails. And that's okay. That's how this business works. You need to treat your business like a business. Obviously identifying markets with vibrant economics and strong population growth and job growth and low unemployment rates are going to be key to a good market for out-of-state landlording. Minimizing risk by investing into maybe pre-inspected turnkey rental properties with a tenant in place to earn cash flow beginning the day the deal closes. That might be a good starter for some people. If the barrier of entry is strong, the debt service is above 1.2, it could be a good deal if the cash on cash return makes sense. You need to evaluate that with your lender. Understanding the maintenance process of ongoing inspections to the property once you have a management company in place, I think is very key. I have a very serious audit process that's required, and it costs me more money, but it gives me better results, and I treat it like a true business. So putting something together that maybe you put together for yourself as a self-manager, and now you're ready to hand it off to a property manager, you need to set the tone with them. You're babysitting the babysitter. And I think that's very important. Something I'm also going to extend to everybody as well. This is something very unique. I am offering the opportunity to interview anybody that's listening in that wants to put 30 minutes of 8 to 10 questions and feature them on the Creative Birth Strategies podcast. A lot of our moderators, I'm loading up for the month of February because I am going to be away for 11 days with my wife. So I won't be around from the 29th to the 9th of February. But once we get back, I really love to interview a lot of our listeners or engaged listeners to try to assist you in your business and market your business out. And that's why I relaunched the podcast. We had the podcast during the pandemic, and then I kind of fell into the Clubhouse world, kind of got away from it. But I was asked to bring it back, and I think it's a righteous opportunity to get in front of a lot of people. We're having some great downloads and some opportunities of meeting and greeting with people. And I love to feature as many people from the Clubhouse house here, the Creative Birth Strategies house, that hopefully, incite your opportunities, provide marketing awareness of who you are, what you do, and what your why is. Simply just email me 8 to 10 questions, a little background on yourself, a little bio. My email's on my profile. I love to have the opportunity to provide extra marketing tools for you in 2024 as part of this group. And it will not cost anything. We'll edit it for you. We'll post it onto our podcast. Whatever it takes to better your business, we're here to provide that. I just want to be part of your power team if possible, and building that relationship. And I think that's important. I want to be a good communicator for our listeners here, our engaged followers every Saturday, Sunday morning. Saturdays 8 a.m., Sunday mornings 9:30 a.m. We have vetted moderators. Some have come and some have gone. I've eliminated some because it's not about just ourselves. It's about the team effort of providing you really good education and strategy. None of us here sell a program where we're trying to take advantage of you. We're here to provide education, insight, strategy, and growth in the real estate industry because that's why you're here. Good morning, Justin. Welcome. Brief overview of who you are, what you do, and thoughts to discussion this morning, out-of-state landlording strategies.
Good morning, everybody. Justin Jefferson, up in the Southern Louisiana market currently, if you heard me intro myself before, you heard me talk about my potential, or not potential now, just, my moves to a different state, specifically probably Dallas. So just with regard to the topic, I have never been an out-of-state landlord. I've never done a project out of state. Everything has been right here in my city or, you know, a neighboring city or something like New Orleans or something like that. So I would just say all of the advice that I've heard this morning was really great. I think it all makes sense to me. Having a great team and a great property management system. I'll say this as far as my plan, right? Just you know, I'm not gonna wait till I get to Dallas and start figuring out how I'm gonna manage my stuff back here and grow the things that I have back home. But just essentially my plan as out of state, well, soon to be out of state landlord, is to use the capital that I'll be making in Dallas with potential, you know, different things that I have going on, and to invest back home where it's much, you know, the barrier to entry is, you know, much less than it would be in a place like Dallas. But the growth potential is still there, still really good rents, especially in comparison to, you know, what I'm going to be paying for certain properties. So that's just kind of my perspective on being an out-of-state landlord and how I plan to use it to my advantage in real life. So, you know, thanks, Joe, for letting me share that little piece this morning.
Thanks, Justin. As always, he's been a committed moderator to our group for the last several years. We've gotten to meet and break bread. I look forward to seeing him again very soon. I like the Dallas market. I just think it's crested and it's slowing. The heat has slowed down. It's cooled down a little bit. I'm seeing some higher vacancy rates there right now on the rental side. A lot of development still, a lot of booms. I think there's still an opportunity there, but you got to be very cautious to that. Another thoughts, you know, anybody that's listening in that wants to get involved with landlords, right? Why don't you create, this is a great idea if you think about this. Hang on one second, somebody's trying to come up. Where are you? There you go. Why don't you create a landlord connection group on Facebook in for your market? You know, like Tim and Jim, they should create a market Facebook group called the Denver Landlord Connection. Yeah, I'm sure landlords, you know, people that are looking through focusing on Denver might compel to that on a Facebook group and start vetting their laundry, what's going on in the market. I would highly look up the Philadelphia Landlord Connection group because wow, a lot of insightful information on there. Some things are a little rough, but Philadelphia, as we know, is a little gritty. So you know, you take it as you get it, but you get a lot of information, and a lot of people are willing to give you some great insight to what's going on. Ron, good morning and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and do you have a question or statement to the room in regards to out-of-state landlording?
Hi, my name is Ron. I live in New Jersey and I have a few single family houses in Philadelphia. And I have a question about out-of-state landlording strategy. I purchased the houses a few years back where the taxes were low. But my taxes, although they're still relatively low to New Jersey, were either doubled or tripled.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to my property management. They mentioned that there's a different policy for out-of-state taxes versus in-state owner taxes. The city of Philadelphia he claimed, the property manager claimed that he's charging more for out-of-state. Is this something that you've seen in Philadelphia and you've seen in other states? Thanks.
I have not heard of that. I have heard of investors when they buy a property, Ron, and they pull a permit and they think the rents are going to stay the same. That's not going to be the case. You know, rents don't stay. I mean, taxes don't stay the same if you pull a permit. The tax. Have you done upgrades where you had to pull permits on any of these properties?
No upgrade. Eventually, the valuation of property went up because the property was almost gutted houses. So I don't would I compare it gutted house versus fully renovated houses. But the property tax, I'll give you an example, went from 400 to 1,000 in one case over a year. So That's
So-
what I'm concerned with. There is any, but you stated there is no differentiation between out-of-state
No.
owner versus in-state.
No,
Thank
but
you.
what I'm thinking is, I don't know if you know what's going on, Ron, in Philadelphia with the wage tax. They're losing millions and millions of dollars right now, just like all the other urban cities where companies are taking advantage that they don't have to bring their employees back into the cities and let them work remote or hybrid. And now the city's losing all that wage tax of all these individuals that once worked in Center City, and they now can work from New Jersey or Delaware, and they don't have to pay wage tax to the city. So there's that shortfall, that waterfall is obviously impacting the tax base back to the property owners. I don't think there's any type of prejudicial considerations when it comes to a non-state owner, like an out-of-state owner of a property compared to somebody in-state. I don't think that's true. I think your property manager is incorrect, just to say the least.
Okay. Do you see the same trend in other big metropolitan like New York City, Los Angeles, where they have to cover for shortfall of wage taxes, that they raise this on the raise the property taxes to cover this shortfall?
I'm seeing Los Angeles is a whole nother anomaly. That's a dumpster fire. Okay, all the cities in California are technically, to me, dumpster fires. San Francisco is like Armageddon. Okay, LA, they've ruined those cities. Oakland, San Diego's still hanging on because it's more of a purplish city where it's kind of neutral between politics, and they've really balanced it out really well. But the rest of the cities are going through some horrible resets right now. I love the markets in Texas. I like markets in Arkansas. I like Oklahoma. I think the biggest impact right now to the bottom line of PITI, meaning principal, interest, tax, and insurance, is insurance. I think insurance is having more impact to the bottom line of profitability on properties right now than taxes. I mean, taxes are what they are. You better understand your taxes, especially if you're pulling permits and doing upgrades to the property. You're basically notifying the tax office that you're giving a better value to that property based on upgrades and renovations. So you like when I take an application or an overview on somebody that's doing a bridge fixed to rent where they're going to need a renovation loan initially, and they're telling me, "Oh, my taxes are only $900." I say, "Well, what kind of renovations you're going to put in?" "Oh, 50 to 60 grand." I said, "Are you pulling permits?" They go, "Oh yeah." I said, "Your taxes are going to go up 20 to 30%, guaranteed, because they're going to reassess the value of their tax base on that subject property." "Oh, you think?" I said, "I know for a fact. It's not going to be tomorrow, but it's going to be sometime in the next 12 to 18 months." So common sense, you better understand your comparative of Section 8 rental market to the market at hand of market rents and see which one is more cost benefit. I rather know I'm going to collect 90 cents on the dollar from the government check than risk a professional tenant that knows how to skirt the system, and you sit without getting paid for rent for 6 to 9 months until you get them thrown out. Which one sounds better? I mean, as you know, in Philadelphia, it could take 6 to 9 months to get a professional crappy tenant out. If you go outside of Philadelphia, and this was a thing that we were going back and forth with somebody on the chat, a lot of these markets that have been identified as hot markets, it's not the city itself. It's the surrounding communities that are hot, that make that city look good. So, like example, Philadelphia is a top rental market in 2024. Philadelphia County proper is not, to me, a strong place to buy rental markets. The stronger play is in Delaware County, Montgomery County, the Bucks County, Chester County. Those impact the Philadelphia County numbers. Same with Harrisburg, same with every city throughout the country. So when I see a market in the top 10 that doesn't make a lot of sense, like downtown Denver, I don't see as a top rental market. I see the 15-mile stretch from the airport to Denver proper as a hotter rental market. But they have to include that in the numbers for Denver, the city overall. So when you look at a city, look at the surrounding markets to get you back into the city. Like Justin's looking at Dallas. Transportation is a little tough in Dallas, but I would identify markets that have strong transportation back into Dallas as good out-of-state landlording opportunities, not Dallas itself. That market's already been played out, and a lot of the meat's been taken off the carcass. So you gotta really understand your surrounding suburbs and communities to every city throughout the country. I can tell you right now for a fact, the entire South Jersey corridor, 30 minutes to 45 minutes from Philadelphia, is so hot. I mean, I'm seeing clients come to me with 2, 3 properties at the time, buying these properties up. And guess what? They're all cash flowing on a back end from a debt service coverage ratio perspective and a cash flow perspective. And another thing, there's a very strong property management presence. They're falling on top of each other to obtain accounts. That's when you see that's when you can interview 3 or 4 good property management companies and see who's going to be good for you in your growth and your opportunities if you're going to be an out-of-state landlord. You need to vet these individuals, and you gotta vet them one after another. You just can't take the first one. You got to really understand this is a real business out in real estate. This is not something that looks really cute and cuddly on HDTV. This is real life. You're holding these properties anywhere from 10 to the next 30 years of your life. These are going to be part of your cash flow and your generational wealth. So you want to be smart as an out-of-state landlord in identifying your power team, who you want to surround yourself. Clubhouse is a great way of finding people in out of state markets throughout the country. I mean, think about it. You have Connecticut, Denver, Louisiana, Philadelphia, Lehigh Valley, Austin, Texas, and New Jersey all in one room. And I can't imagine where everybody else is from down below. Think about how much access you have in this room alone in the last 60 to 90 minutes. It's a massive opportunity. Massive. And also tomorrow, I want to let everybody know, if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn and Facebook, I'll be announcing where I'll be working, and I signed all the documentation where I'll be a regional development manager for a very large asset-based lender. Balance sheet lending, it's our money. Portfolio lending, really our money. Not saying that I'm not telling you it's our money. It's really our money to put to work. The rates, the cost, the procedure is seamless. I really like the numbers I'm seeing from my clients. They're happy. I did a lot of testing with several other lenders, and this seems like the smartest move to make in this region. So I look forward to making those announcements on LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the other social media buckets. And we're live here on Apple and Spotify with Yardell Perkins of Perkatech, one of our sponsors of the Creative Birth Strategy podcast. I want to thank him today. I'm putting this together last minute. We did a podcast yesterday, but I wanted to bring some of my guests and moderators onto the podcast itself and get some exposure for them. Please follow Tim and Jim into the next room. I think this was a great, solid discussion. We went almost an hour and a half, so I went a little more than what I like to go. My quote this morning: if you see someone falling behind, walk beside them. If you see somebody being ignored, find a way to include them. Always remind people of their worth. One small act would mean the world to them. Everybody have a great Sunday. Take care of yourself. We'll see you next weekend.